I think it's terrifying. I mean, this seems potentially like one of the biggest stories of my lifetime. And I don't care if it's about UFOs or whatever you call it. Something that we don't understand is getting very close to our military aircraft.
The technologies related to energy generation should come out first.
This hybrid aerospace underwater craft is able to basically generate an electromagnetic field.
It is President Trump's belief that the United States must remain as dominant in space as we are on land and sea and the air. And your charge is to see to that mission with the United States Space Force.
I mean, there were 3 people on my team assassinated, and I was almost killed.
With a lot of people that would like to know what's going on.
It's a matter of national security.
But apparently, just recovered are off-world vehicles not made on this Earth.
The president will respond to the subject the way they want them to. There's a black box with all the technologies that would give us a civilization that's sustainable, peaceful, etc., and that's been around for decades.
Everybody's asking the biggest question in the world. Are we alone?
Look, it's just stalled out there.
The narrative that's being launched, which is a false narrative, is that we're not alone and that those civilizations are a threat. The problem is that the public has to be informed and involved.
It could be a brief statement saying, hallelujah, I'm finally vindicated.
I'm not completely convinced they're going to let this stay like it is.
But the people who are surrounding that level of our politicians and government are not told. Like the movie Independence Day, where Will say, let's go kick alien butt.
Good evening and welcome to Dark Hour Paranormal. I am your host, Michael Roser. And this evening, folks, I have Gary Hootenhalla with us in the studio tonight. He's a flesh and blood cryptid researcher, has 24 years of experience being a paranormal investigator, and he has quite the breadth of information, wisdom, and knowledge that he's garnered over his experiences and the years that he's been involved in this field. Folks, I'm very excited to have Gary with us tonight, and I have to say, I want to give a quick shout out to Long Island Bigfoot, because he is the reason that I know Gary at all. One evening he did invite him on the show, and Gary came on and appeared. I was there for a short period of time, not long enough, as it would seem. But that being said, I did get a chance to talk to Gary at some length, and I was very intrigued by his perspective, because I think it's a little bit different than what we might be used to here, especially at Dark Hour Paranormal, where we kind of tie in a lot of the spiritual and esoteric principles when it comes to cryptids and even, perhaps the paranormal. There might be other explanations, but there are certainly other perspectives on what we might be seeing and experiencing out there. So that being said, let me read you a little something on Gary. Gary Hootenhalla has been a paranormal researcher for 24 years and is the founder of the Tri-City NY Paranormal Society and the New York Bigfoot Society. He's been featured on the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, National Geographic, Travel Channel, Destination America, along with international television. A boots-on-the-ground field researcher whose love for the outdoors and skills in the mountaineering animal behavior drives him to be out in the field, gaining possible evidence and information from a logical and realistic point of view. And with that, last sentence there, folks, I want to welcome Gary Hootenhalla onto the show. How are you tonight, my friend? Thanks for joining us here.
No, man, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure's all mine, brother. Pleasure's all mine. Wow, I can't really, my tongue is tripping up tonight. I don't know why. I got enough sleep.
It's the COVID. It's the COVID. I would blame everything on the COVID.
There's a big C here. So let's jump right into this, because I know we only have an hour and a half, and believe me, our conversation could go much longer than that. But for now, let's start somewhere here. So you have been working on something new over in your corner there. You have a new creative undertaking, and I believe it's called Project X. Can you tell us a little bit about this and what the aim and direction of this project is?
Yeah. Well, what's up, Footer Nation? Hey, everyone, and BS Army. So yeah, what Project X is a whole different look on the Bigfoot phenomena. Okay. And what I'm doing is, I'm the first one to tell you, I'm a flesh and blood Bigfoot guy. I kind of always stayed on Bigfoot being a real creature. I'm not saying what type of creature, hominoid, ape, whatever. I don't care what kind of real creature it is. I always said it's flesh and blood. Now, with the Project X, I'm now stepping outside my comfort zone, all right, and starting to explore the paranormal Bigfoot, the spiritual Bigfoot, the alien Bigfoot. I took a group of people throughout all of New York State. I have 9 researchers on my team, including Mike from Long Island Bigfoot. What's up, my boy? Oh, yeah. I love him. But I have 9 new researchers on my team, and each researcher brings a different element to the team. We have multiple flesh and blood guys on my team. I have an expert tracker on my team that tracks animals. That's an outdoorsman that does all that. That's his wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is communication with Bigfoots and animal behavior. All my degrees are in animal science. So I bring that to the table in a logical, scientific manner. I have a paranormal Bigfoot guy on my team. And actually, it's funny because I'm already starting to see a couple people going that way now with the experiences in the field. So I have a few of those people on that paranormal that think it's, some kind of ghost of the forest, as I like to put it, because they're there and then they're not. Then we have another guy who believes that they're alien related, that, they're a form of alien. Now, if we want to get logical, I keep everything blunt and real and to the point. If we even go by that we're from the ancient alien theory, then it would be an alien. I mean, that's how easy it is. Boom, solved, problem solved. We're all aliens in our own way. But I have a guy who believes that. And once again, that he brings all that knowledge to the table. It's an array of people in the community that it's an undertaking that I haven't seen in a very long time, or maybe have never seen, of different researchers, different points of view, different everything, but coming together for that common cause, debating in a respectful manner. Like our group chat all day, it's like you'll miss 120 messages, and then you're trying to scroll back 5 miles to read them all. And it's good, healthy debate on these subject matters. And I think in the Bigfoot community, that's what was always missing, was that camaraderie of everybody coming together for that same cause, not bashing one another, because at the end of the day, who the hell cares? We're doing this because we love to do it. We want to find those answers. And that's what Project X is all about. Looking at answers, looking for answers, looking at questions from a different perspective, stepping outside yourself and being like, all right, you know what? Let's get it on. Game on. Let's see what this is about.
I love that. When I first saw that you were launching this Project X, I thought that it was ambitious, but very much a realistic endeavor, and something that not many people have done, if any, really, in respect to a group. I mean, the dynamics in respect to, again, perspective is just, it's so cool the way you're bringing this all together, and all of those that are involved are very seasoned researchers in their own right. And again, like you said, they have their own bents and natural places that they come from. So I think this is cool. And I very much applaud you for putting this together. And I'm very excited to see what comes next with all of that in front of you and the other ones that are involved. Before we get into a little bit of the history and how we lead into cryptozoology and Bigfoot and so forth, for those of us out there who don't know what the term flesh and blood is, can you describe that in relation to Bigfoot and cryptids?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. Flesh and blood is like you and I, living, breathing being of some sort, tied to the planet, either an animal, a human, needs substance to survive. It can bleed just like you and I, all right, and has the same type of habits as any animal would in the forest, any human would have in real life. And that's the simple of it. It's a living, breathing thing.
Cool. No, that's cool. And that's, again, one of the reasons I'm so excited to have you on to discuss this end of things, because I'm sort of torn myself. I do believe that there is an interdimensional aspect or the possibility of something like that existing with some of these cryptids. And yet there's evidence otherwise pointing to it being more of an organic being that, is flesh and blood like ourselves. Maybe it's both. I don't know. But this is such a great thing to explore. And obviously with you, it's fantastic. So, where did your interest in the paranormal and the world of cryptids come from? What came first? Was it the paranormal or cryptozoology when you first embarked on this journey?
Yeah, I mean, my first thing was paranormal, and I grew up as a psychic in an Irish Roman Catholic home. I mean, in an Italian house. So you put that together, okay? My family was kind of strict with that stuff. So because they were strict, that wasn't to be talked about in the house. I know in Italian, a lot of people are spiritual. They have those things. Not in my Italian home. And so when I started seeing my great grandmother and was able to tell my parents about, her, I've never met her, but was talking to her and seeing her like she was, and they couldn't believe that. They kind of shut me down on that. So as I got older, I would see things, and when I say things like people, and kind of as a really young age, in my early teens, I just bought one of those handy dandy mini cassette players. Like, we're going way back, I'm 41, so we're going to the mini cassettes. I bought one of those, and I used to just go out into these abandoned places and look for ghosts, I guess. And that's what got my journey started, and then try to, take my psychic abilities and tune them. Now, I only use that kind of stuff for my work. I don't use it in the Bigfoot stuff, really. So you won't ever hear me talk about it that much, even though I have had psychic encounters, but I don't really speak about it. But as far as the ghost stuff, that's kind of what got me involved in it. And then it just went from there. The reason I started the Tri-City NY Paranormal Society was for one simple reason: to further help children that have psychic abilities growing up and they don't understand what they are, and that it help explain to their parents that they may be experiencing these type of things. So we started the society as an outreach program to the community to just give people education about what they may be experiencing. I always use the word may and possible. You will never hear me say fact. And that's how I got started with the paranormal. And then it just blossomed. Now we raise thousands of dollars to keep historic places alive and open. We have the keys and passwords to multiple historic houses all throughout the state of New York. And I'm a volunteer on a board at one of them. So it's very cool. And it's been an adventure.
Well, how old were you when you had your first paranormal experience, would you say?
I would say I was young. Probably I would say around anywhere from like 5 to like 7 is when I remember it. Mm-hmm. So I would say in that category.
Was that something that triggered your interest in this, or was it something that sort of compounded in retrospect and you said, oh my God, I've had these experiences at some point afterwards, and say, oh, I want to research it now?
Yeah, as I got older, I guess I kept seeing things, you know what I mean? And then I remember I just came across, this is when we had back in AOL dial-up days, when we had all that nice dial-up technology. And you get the nice, like,
I remember.
You remember that? So I just remember, like, going on the computer one day, and I popped up on a ghost page, ghost stories. And I was really young. I was very young. And then it kind of just redrove my purpose and like my questions. Because at that time I was still having things come speak to me, and then you start reading and get involved, and then that's when I finally was like, my parents bought me one of those little mini tape replayers, those recorders with mini tapes, and I must have reused that tape a million times because they would not buy me anymore. And they just it wasn't, and then that's how it got started. You know what I mean? It was a snowball effect. And
yes.
and it pulled me into this life. And now that as I got older, now there was a time in my life I moved to Hawaii for a while, and it was living the beach life. I'm originally from Boston, so you hear my accent.
Yeah, I did hear that. Yeah.
Okay? so my always Red Sox. That's all I gotta say. So anyway, but once I lived in Hawaii for a hot minute, I kind of lost it all. I wasn't into any of this stuff. I was surfing. I lived a totally different life. I kind of got out of it. When I had to move back home for family reasons, I kind of then it started coming back. I started, I found a bunch of my stuff that I left at my parents' house and started kind of, going through it all again. And then just kind of from there, boom, here I am now.
Oh man, that's cool. And this obviously is just a topical overview of, some of your experiences and what you've gone through to get to this point. So I'll come back to the paranormal stuff a little bit later on because I want to focus a little bit on the cryptids and the Bigfoot phenomenon. So let me ask you this, because this is something that's always sort of intrigued me. And I wonder if there's a synergistic connection between us and Bigfoot. But do you think there's any benefit for Bigfoot having interactions with us? Is there any evidence of behavior modification or learning as a result of the interactions?
This is a perfect question. Yes, I do believe that there is some interaction that they do enjoy doing with us. One thing I've always said, and I'll stand by even to this day, is that we're Bigfoot's TV. All right. If Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature, okay, then they would always be curious about us, especially the juveniles. Juveniles is what I believe we get most of the big Bigfoot activity happening. It's so extreme in nature, tree shaking, rock throwing, things like that, screaming. A lot of that, I believe, is juvenile behavior, male juveniles coming into their own, testing the waters. And that's always been my theory, because we look at animal behavior, look at your dogs, look at your cats, look at your animals at home, look at animals in the wild, look at humans, look at teenagers. It's all the same. They want attention, but you push the envelope a little bit. That's why when campers have all these experiences, they'll be at, camping in their tents and stuff, and they'll get rocks thrown in, or they'll see a Bigfoot coming in, things like that. They're watching them. Private clients that I do, they have them around their house. They come and slam the side of the house, or they're messing with their shed or barn area. So once again, there is a relationship there where they kind of come in and then they leave out. So with that, that's kind of what I believe is where their entertainment, like they kind of just want to see what we're about, and then they make a decision for themselves. But you brought up something that I've actually been speaking about lately: learned behavior. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But it's something that I think there's something to a learned behavior.
Well, you know what? If you don't mind, I'd like to hear a little bit about that now, because this is something that's really curious to me, and again, would indicate that there is sort of something synergistic between us and, these cryptids.
Okay, so what I mean by learned behavior is this. As a person that goes into the woods doing Bigfoot research, I guess, if you are in an area where let's just hypothetically say you have them in your property, okay? They know you go into the woods all the time. Okay, because to say you're a hunter, or you just randomly go in the woods, they start throwing rocks at you. Okay, and once again, rock throwing is one of the things we hear a lot about in Bigfoot behavior. Once again, why a lot of people think that they may be, primate in nature, because gorillas, apes, things like that, they do that. They do rock throwing. But that's another topic. Think about this. If something's throwing rocks at you and screaming at you, okay, and you just stand your ground and you're not moving, what do you think's going to happen? One of two things. Either one's going to get really pissed and come at you because you're not doing it. You're not moving. Or it's finally going to calm down. Kind of like, I put it like a dog jumping. You get home, your dog jumps on you, keeps jumping on you. It's excited to see you. You start ignoring your dog, and what happens? It sits, or it just stops jumping because you've now ignored it. If we go by those type of theories, same thing with deer, same thing with other animals. So once again, if we go by that thought process, I believe that if you keep doing that over and over and over again, it would become a learned behavior that you may no longer get rock throwing at you, because a squatch would know that you're not going to react.
Huh.
You may not get the extreme screams anymore because you're not coming out of the woods reacting. If you're dealing with an alpha male or a juvenile, which the alpha males, I believe they're like bucks. You really don't see them unless you really need to see them. But the juveniles, they're the ones that are testing the waters. And if they see you're not going to move and you're not going to do anything, and these are behaviors that they already have instilled in them genetically, they're not going to react to you after a while. And once again, that's what we find that happens in the Bigfoot field. After a while, when people think that they may, their Sasquatches may have disappeared. No, they may have not disappeared. Once again, they may just not be reacting to you in the same way. That's what I call leveling up. Like you hit the 1-up mushroom in Mario Brothers and you get an extra life. That's what it is. Now I got that fire flower because now I'm on the offensive. So you then have to twist your thinking. Okay, I have my little raccoon Mario guy. And what I'm going to do is twist my thinking and be like, now we're going to communicate and you're going to do things my way. And then you push upon them what you're doing to entice a response. And same thing when you're doing animal behavior. We then tell a dog, sit. We use hand signals to entice a response after that dog was jumping on you for 5 minutes straight because it was excited. We think about things this way, then we can almost control the situation a little bit. And I mean a little bit. But I can tell you in 2020, myself and the NYBS have done that. And it's the first time thinking in this manner that we're able to get these reactions.
I'm curious here. Do you think that is, well, basically what you were just talking about? Do you think it's more a war of wills, or do you think there is some sort of energetic tug of war at play?
I think it's both. Honestly, I really do think it's both. When we hear about paranormal in the Bigfoot field, I'll use the word paranormal. I will. Mm-hmm. Supernatural, I will not use. Paranormal is just something that we don't understand. Really, that's what it is. So if we look at that term, I think it is an energy pull of the fact of we all have frequency. Everything in life has a frequency. My voice has a frequency. My body gives off EMF, which is a frequency. My emotions give off frequency in the environment. How am I going to react? Things like that. A Squatch, if you have a Squatch near you enough, I just believe that they don't have supernatural abilities. I believe that they do have paranormal abilities in the fact that they're the masters of their environment. They're the masters of things that we still don't understand that we lost because of technology and modern day living. So they have the sixth sense. I believe a Squatch has 7 to 8, 9 senses. Okay, that once again, it's just that they're one step ahead of us. And it's not that they're smarter. It's not that they have, and people are like, well, they're smarter than us. I don't really think they're smarter than us. What I think it is that we're not in tune with the forest anymore. We're not in tune with the woods. Yes, I'm a mountaineer. I hike all these big mountains. I ice climb. I do all that crap. I train nonstop for that stuff. I'm a bushwhacker. I go through the woods to have fun and make weird things because I'm bored. But that doesn't mean that, I mean, this is what it is. But it doesn't mean that I'm totally woodsy. You put me in the woods for 5, 6, 7 months, I'm going to want to interact with someone and come home. Okay? Watch that History Channel show Alone. Love it. But those people start breaking down because of human interactions and human connections they make. We need that, as humans, we need that. So once again, I believe that it's a double-edged sword, like you said. Energy level and physical.
That's interesting too, that you brought up the idea that we might have been more in tune with, the forest, many, many years ago. It's something I've talked about quite often, that I always believed that, the ancient human beings that were tribal and they lived in the woods and they lived on the land and they were very connected. They knew how to use certain energies. They used the positive energies that we'd call today, or the negative energies, what we'd term today. And they had a balance, and they were balanced. That's what it was. They were part of that ecosystem, whereas we're very much removed, even just walking in with our clothes and our backpacks just to go hiking in the woods. We're very much out of our element these days. So it's a really good point that you brought up. one of the big questions that people always have, what are some of the observations you've made that indicates to you that Bigfoot is a biological creature and not something preternatural, so to say? And I understand the presence of juveniles and so forth, but what makes you think that this is definitely biological and doesn't have an esoteric counterpart?
The reason I think that is I've seen one. Like I said, I'll tell you about my encounter, but because seeing is believing, I'm the first person to tell you. Here's my quick how I got into Bigfoot. It's simple. I got bored of ghost and I needed something new. And because I have ADHD and I'm very hyper and I love subject matters, I told you, we were talking behind the scenes, Jersey Devil was my jam. I love me some good Jersey Devil. The story's amazing. It's a great story. But in New York, we do have Bigfoot. And then I was like, you know what? And I used to watch the monster shows. Who doesn't watch a good monster show? I mean, come on. And then I used to watch Monster Quest and that stuff. And then once again, I was like, you know what? I'm going to start searching for Bigfoot because it's different and it's going to get me jazzed. And I like the woods. And that's how simple it was. So then I got into Bigfoot. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I honestly never thought I would see one. Honestly,
as most of us do.
Yeah, but a lot of people that go out and they're looking, they look and then they find one. I wasn't that way. I was like, listen, I don't even care if I find one. Really, I'm in the woods. I'm having a campfire. I'm eating a lot of good junk food right now. I'm drinking me some Monster Energy drinks and some coffee. Like, this is cool for me. I'm good because I'm just away from everybody with some good people, good friends, and having a camp out. That's all I cared about. And then you throw Bigfoot into the mix at like 1 a.m, and it's an awesome thing. And but my encounter story. What's up, Jersey? I see that Jersey. So the Pine Barrens. I love me some Pine Barrens. I'm not gonna lie. That's a great place. And but my encounter story is very simple. Once again, we got done filming a TV show for the History Channel. Okay, TV is very produced. I can tell you that right now. I was a part of it. Blah, blah, blah. But here's my stipulation with TV. If you ever watch the America Book of Secrets that I'm in on History Channel, you'll see that me and the cameraman actually heard a wood knock. That wood knock did happen. It really did happen. So that's legit. That was legit. All the rest of it is this produced. And so I went back to the area, within a couple of days after, just to go hiking. Once again, it's in an area that I go to often. I'm always up in the Adirondacks in New York, and I'm an avid hiker. So I was like, I'm going to go up there, bring my night vision binocular, and just walk the trail because I just wanted to get away from everything, And it was hectic. It was definitely hectic filming. I'm not going to lie. And so I'm walking down the trail. Once again, we know this is a Bigfoot active area. I've been researching it for years. And, I'm walking down the trail, and sure enough, there's a big tree, and it's off to the left. And I see what looked like a raccoon climbing the tree. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, I get to see this. Like, you don't see stuff like that. And I'm an animal guy. I love my wildlife. Okay. And sure enough, I'm like, that's cool. It's a raccoon or a possum. This is something cool, And then all of a sudden, so I'm stopping in to watch it, and it's not moving. And I'm like, okay. It's about 60 yards in front of me. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, it blinked. The minute it blinked at me, my body went into flight or fright. Goosebumps. I got nauseous. I got sick. I was scared shitless. I'm not going to lie. Part of my language. Mm-hmm. And once it blinked, it became real. It wasn't real when it was a raccoon. When I thought in my head, I was going through it's a raccoon. It's this. When I saw that thing blink at me and then stare right back at me, I was like, oh man. Like, every spidey sense in your body goes off, because you now are out of your environment. Yes, I know the woods. Yes, I love the woods. The woods is my home. But in that scenario, that is no longer my home. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, we had a little bit of a standoff, like staring contest. He or she was just watching me. I don't know what it was, but it was about 7 feet tall. And then it turned slowly and walked to the left, and slowly through the woods. You could hear it bipedal walking through the woods, and I'm watching it from the side on my night vision. And then it disappeared over under this hill, went right down to the valley. Now, this is what's messed up about it though. Logic. I'm logic here. You could barely hear it walking in the woods. And now this is fall. This is November. Leaf litter everywhere. Oak leaves. They're all over the place. You could barely hear it. So
go ahead. Sorry.
No, and it's like, this is why I think, in my opinion, some people think it's paranormal. Because once again, it does these things that are outside of our thinking. Now, if I was to go through the woods, you'd hear me coming 16 miles away. All right, I'm trudging through the woods, and I'm a gear guy. I have gear upon gear. I'm a tech nerd. All right, as a ghost hunter, I love toys. Okay, so you know what I mean. You know how it is, my man. So it's like you hear us coming a mile away. This thing though was so quiet that if you really didn't know what to listen for, you would miss it. You would miss it. And once again, and I think it's evolution. They're built that way. Even though this thing may have weighed like 800 pounds, 900 pounds. I don't know. I'm not going to give you a weight estimate. But hypothetically, the thing is the way their feet are, the way their dynamics are, the way their joint movement is, the way they set their feet down on the leaf litter, they have a way where they can be stealthy. Like I knew it was there still. Even if I didn't see it, if I heard it walking, I would definitely hear it. But it wouldn't be like a deer walking through the woods or, things like that. So it's just, I think they've just become masters of stealth, and it would make sense.
Is there any other animal in our known system that might subscribe to something like that?
I mean, yeah. I mean, a red-tailed fox is a perfect example. I once again, back in the day, I used to use DVR cameras in the woods. I was big onto that. I was all about catching everything, and I kind of backed off of that a lot. But anyway, I tried something new, and on camera, right outside camp, we caught a red-tailed fox go right by the camera, which was awesome. I mean, I love seeing that stuff. But I can tell you, we were at camp and we didn't fall, and we didn't even hear it go by.
Okay.
So once again, there's a way some animals do go through the woods and you really don't hear them that well. And you could say maybe it's because, we're not paying attention and things like that. But at the end of the day, I mean, some animals can be stealthy, especially the cats, bobcats, Canadian lynx, mountain lions are another perfect example of stealth. So there are many animals that are very stealthy in nature. So a Bigfoot, I could see it if it's, once again, just evolved to be a master of the environment. It matches.
I really like what you're saying. And I think, some of the discontinuity comes from the idea that this being is so big, or reportedly so big. And you'd say, well, how could something so big, run through the forest that way and be undetected? But hey, if it's been in its natural environment, as long as it's, it's been there, honestly, they might know the ins and outs better than we ever could, seeing as we sort of divorced ourselves and went on a different path. Even though we're returning to our roots now, I mean, we have to remember it all. We've forgotten it. That's how long it's been. So I do believe that there is definitely the ability for some animals to do that. And I don't see it being out of the realm of possibilities that Bigfoot could have cultivated some sort of stealthy maneuvers as time has gone on, more than likely being a predator at some point in its evolution, if it isn't now. You know what I mean? Sticking on the physicality of things for a moment here, can you tell us a bit about the physical evidence you found or that you know of to support the existence of Bigfoot, maybe hair samples, tracks, tree markings? And I know you have audio clips you've done. And just to follow that up, what do you believe is the strongest bit of evidence that we have in regards to Bigfoot right now?
All right. So I'm going to answer one question in the comments first, because I always like to try to answer. Is that someone asked about Bigfoot and coyotes. Here's my secret. This is the first time ever on radio I'm telling you my secret, because dark hours kick ass. Hey man, is that
appreciate you.
No, you're fine. Follow the coyotes, you will find Bigfoot evidence. They have a relationship. What relationship would that be? Simple. Scavenging. Bigfoots are scavengers, predators of opportunity. Okay, something that's that large is gonna get easy pickings from anything. What happens when coyotes explode in the woods? They kill something, they explode. You can hear them miles away. It's scary when you're out hiking at nighttime and you hear the coyotes just start going crazy. Same thing in New York, we have the coy dogs, okay, which is kind of out of hand. They kill something. Guess what's not too far behind if it's an area where there's a Bigfoot? a Bigfoot would be coming right through there, taking the kill and then disappearing into the woods. It's that simple. Why do I think this? In some of our research areas, we have found coyote killings. We found those kind of things. Guess what's near when all the fur's all over the place, whatever it was killing at the time, probably rabbits and things like that. Bigfoot tracks. Let's just be honest. When you're in the woods, it's about survival. Okay, it's straight survival. So it would make perfect logical sense from a biological standpoint. Humans would do the same thing. If you're living in the woods, you're going to get the easiest meal you can get. Being an alpha predator in the woods, follow the coyotes, because they do the easy work for the Bigfoot. And that's really what I believe. And the evidence backs it up.
That makes sense too. I mean, if everything works on some sort of, I'm not going to use the right word here. Ecology? No, it's not the word I'm looking for. Is it the right? Okay. Well, if everything is working again in its own natural environment and everything is balanced, with the presence of these entities, I mean, that's a great point. That's a great point, and something I never thought about. Follow the kills. Follow the packs and see what comes in as a scavenger. I mean, that's brilliant, actually.
And number two, and here's number two for you. When you find Bigfoot tracks, what does everybody tend to do? Is that they go forward. Okay? But wouldn't you think that a Bigfoot would know that you're going in that direction? And what would a Bigfoot do? They're going to double back around you like most animals would do. Mountain lions, a lot of the cats. When you're tracking animals, unless you come face to face with them, they're going to double back around you and then come up to the side and end up behind you. And you're not going to know because you're just focused so much forward. We got to think backwards. So when you start finding tracks, stop, evaluate, obviously, and then go backwards. Because if they are fresh, and now this is fresh tracks, they're going to come around you. Listen, you're not going to, if you're going toward a Bigfoot, first off, let's be honest, that could end up a dangerous situation real quick. We don't know what they are. It could feel like you're a threat. But if you make enough noise, once again, in the woods, they're going to know you're there anyway because they smell you coming a mile away. That's why I laugh when people wear camouflage in the woods. Once again, they know you're there even before you're there. We are noisy. We smell. Okay. Even we put all that nice, clothing stuff on, all that nice outdoorsy stuff that covers our scent. We still smell. All right. To something like that, especially. So double track, go backwards. And once again, you'd be surprised what starts happening. And that's once again, if you find something fresh. So that's another tip out there. I mean, that's just my opinion, but it seems to have worked.
No, it seems very logical too, especially when you're explaining it the way you are. I could see it being that way, definitely. On the second part of that question, what is your? I'm sorry. Let me pull that on. What is the strongest bit of evidence that we might have as a collective right now in evidence for Bigfoot?
All right, I know I got on a tangent there.
No, it's fine. That's what I'm here for, man.
But so evidence. I mean, evidence is pretty simple for me personally. Foot tracks. What creates these foot tracks? Now, people can sit there and say, "Oh, people have wooden tracks," which we know they do, and they've hoaxed them. And there's been hoaxes throughout all eternity, basically, but not all over the United States. It's just not happening. And excuse me. So I would go by simple foot tracks as number one. Because what leaves these tracks in these areas where people really aren't, okay? Number two is simple, witness sightings. Listen, some of these people that come forward, it's kind of like the ufology thing, okay? Like I study ufology too. I've talked to some of these people that have everything to lose. High security clearance, very high security clearance. And they're coming to talk to me about these things. And I'm like, yo, I don't want to know about this because you're very high security clearance and I'm going to end up missing. But, at the end of the day, these people have no reason to lie, okay? They're not going to gain anything out of it. So, once again, witness encounters. Now, not all of them. There's plenty of misidentification. We all do that, including myself. None of us are perfect, okay? But those would be number one. Now, when you get into DNA, All right. We do take DNA on the team. I have taken DNA of a possible Bigfoot and it came back unconclusive. All right. It was too diminished off the vial, things like that. I do have, those abilities to me from being on TV and knowing people. That's the only good thing that came out of something like that for me personally. And it came back unconclusive. But the problem with DNA is this, and let's be logical. If the government covers up absolutely everything, okay, think about UFOs. UFOs, people see them all over the place. Videos, the whole, the Navy footage, which they finally had to come out and say it was real because they couldn't hide it anymore. Okay, if they cover everything up so much, why then would they ever say that there's Bigfoot DNA? Because you're touching so many different things that are very sketchy. One, religion. Religion is a multi-million-dollar business. Religion is a business, okay? But they have their foot in all government workings. Number two, evolution. You now have changed what Darwin's theory of evolution and what we believe. They don't want to touch that. Number three, the logging industry. You would now put an endangered species in the woods. There was an owl that they found that was an endangered owl somewhere out west. I don't know the exact thing, so I'm just going to say it's an owl. They had to shut down that portion of the woods because it's an endangered species. The logging company lost millions. So imagine having a 7 to 9 foot thing in the woods. Hiking in New York is huge industry. Okay, I'm a part of it. You go up to the Adirondacks, you can't even park anymore. Especially even COVID time, it's even worse.
Jesus.
It brings these towns lots of money. Okay? Logging, they shut down the woods. Guess what happens? Millions and millions of dollars are lost. That's revenue. We all know everything works off the dollar. Okay? So my question would always be, would they even if they found DNA really, are they even going to say that they really found Bigfoot DNA? Or the government covers everything up. So that person that's coming out whistleblowing about DNA, do you really think that they would leave that out there for all of us to argue about on Facebook?
Right.
Let's be real. UFOs, we know they exist. We see them. Ghost. Millions of people have seen Ghost. Seeing is believing. Bigfoot. Tens of thousands of people have seen Bigfoot. But they don't exist. I mean, let's be logical here. Logic's going to state that they're just going to flush it down the toilet. So once again, I just believe, find the tracks. You can't argue a Bigfoot track. You can argue that it could possibly be a wooden cast. Yes. But when you start getting into dermal ridging, when you start getting into toe structure, when you start getting into a structure of a foot track, that, my friend, I believe, is the best evidence because it's physical.
That's interesting because I thought it might have been, a bit of hair tucked away somewhere, or maybe they found a hand or something, because you hear things like this through the grapevine. But it makes sense because there are a plethora of different tracks that fall under this category that people have been recording for years. I mean, obviously there have been plaster casts taken of these, and you can go and see them in certain museums and so forth for yourself. But you're right about the dermal ridging and some of the other under patterns that appear in different species that don't belong in the area that they're found, and especially at the size that the footprint indicates this being to be. I think that, if we were to talk about this on a larger scale, and you brought up, perhaps shifting and shaking the paradigm that we're all used to, it's really sad that we're so stuck in what we do, even if it's wrong. Okay. If something like this exists, like Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and again, they're in their natural environment out in the woods and we're out there logging, well, it's easy enough for us as humans to play the ignorance card, which we've done many a time. Say, oh, we don't know anything about it. Just cut all the trees down and we wipe out another species that we can never study again. And it's through ignorance, but it's a group of people, or it's a collective group of people that really have the power to make those certain decisions. And unfortunately, that's how we've been led, and how we've been allowing ourselves to be led for quite some time. So it's good to have these conversations and bring up stuff like religion, bring up the science behind it, bring up the social implications and the development developmental implications that are all affected by talking about this subject, especially when it comes to Bigfoot, which we see so much anecdotal evidence of, if not otherwise. In respect to, again, Bigfoot being physical, we all know that he eats. My question is, and I've asked this of a couple other researchers as well, because I like to get different opinions on this. In your experience, what does Bigfoot's diet consist of? And do you gift for him or them? And if you do, and you come back and return to the site and you find things missing or half eaten, how do we know that it's not just a wild but familiar animal eating what's left out for Bigfoot and not not Bigfoot? Yeah.
Great questions. I love this. So I'm going to give you an example. June 2020, the COVID era. Okay. I started doing communication in my main research area in the Adirondacks. What did I do? I do use trail cameras. A lot of people are like, well, Gary, trail cameras, they give off high, high EMF or frequency, the IR light, blah, blah, blah. You don't catch Bigfoots on trail cameras. 100%. I agree. I know this. I use trail cameras to monitor the environment of the animals that are in the environment. Follow the animals. You'll see if a squatch is there. Alpha predator in the area. Guess what happens? Deer are no longer there for days. Okay. Food doesn't go missing. Food will stay. Okay. So what do they seem to eat? Well, once again, they would eat what's in the woods. There's so many nuts, berries, things like that. Now, in New York, we go by season. In June, guess what? One of the most common reports, May and June, that I get what Bigfoots are eating. Blueberries. Okay. The deer eat the blueberries. A lot of times, sightings of Bigfoots in people's property and yards tend to be around the blueberry bushes. Makes sense. Okay. So they're eating the blueberries because we got to go by New York. I did one private case, I think back in August, with Joe Schneider. He's on my Bigfoot team from Western New York Bigfoot Research Organization. What's up, Joe? And we went out to Western New York, out toward Buffalo. Okay. And sure enough, the property that we were on, the woman has this: blueberries, soybean farm next door, apples all over the place, acorns and nuts trees all over the place, corn down the road. That is a smorgasbord of food things for a Bigfoot, which would make reasons why they would be in this area. Now, with that even being said, yes, they would eat easy pickings of animals. They would scavenge whatever they could scavenge. Hence why I say, follow the coyotes if you're in a squatch area, and then you may get Bigfoot stuff. You may find some evidence because they're going to easy pickings. They're scavengers. What else do I hear about them? I got a story coming out of, I think it was 2018. A guy called me. He's like, yo, dude, I saw my first Bigfoot. You don't even know, blah, blah, blah. Guy's from New York City. So it's one of the New York City people that moved up here because that's happening a lot. A lot of the city people move up to this area. Well, what happened? He went out to smoke a cigarette. He had a have-a-heart trap outside because he had the raccoons and all of his garbage cans because he doesn't know the woods. He doesn't know that kind of stuff, all right? First off, put your garbage away. You're living in the woods now. Okay? What happened? He caught one of the raccoons in the have-a-heart trap. Cool. All right. He goes out to smoke a cigarette. He looks down. It's one of those high decks because these houses are a lot sitting up higher because of the mountain. So these houses are built into the side of the mountains. Sure enough, he has a Bigfoot crushing the have-a-heart trap to get the raccoon out of the trap. Scared the living piss out of him. He ran back inside. He told me this on the phone, and I'm just sitting there like, pondering this whole thing because that's what I do. When I went out to go see this stuff, sure enough, that have-a-heart trap was like crushed. Crushed in half, ripped right open. Now, I've worked as, a lot of my stuff is in animal behavior. I was a licensed veterinary technician for a long time. So I worked I ran an animal shelter for 8 years and things like that. I worked in veterinary medicine. I understand how these traps work. There's no way you could tear one in half. It just doesn't happen unless you cut it with bolt cutters and stuff. It just doesn't happen. The thing got that raccoon now. Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So they're they're opportunists. They're going to eat whatever they can eat because they're scavengers. So it would have a diet based on what's in the environment. And a lot of people don't know in the wintertime, the pine sap off of trees, high in fat, high in calories, pine bark. Native Americans used to boil it for teas. You can actually, you can chew it like gum. Ready? Another one of Gary's Bigfoot secrets. Follow the pines. I believe that you follow the pines, that Bigfoots are in the pines. Why do I say that? If you've ever been in the woods, what's the darkest area of the woods?
It's right in the pines. Yep.
Stealth. All right. Here's an example. And actually, I was on another radio show a couple weeks ago, and this guy from Virginia backed up my theory. He was a Bigfoot researcher, has an area of pines. That's where his Bigfoots were. Okay. That's not what backs up my theory. The logging company came in because they have a depletion of white pine. So they came in, and what did they do? They logged all the pine. And guess what happened?
Mm-hmm.
The Bigfoots disappeared. They are no longer in the area. They took the pines down. The Bigfoots moved. Follow the pines.
That is very curious.
Yep, and it makes
makes sense.
In the winter, where's the lowest snowfall in the woods in the winter? The pines. Where do you find all the deer? I'm a bow hunter. Where do you find all the deer in the winter? The pines. If you're going to walk through something to be the stealthiest you can be, the pines. 5-6 inches of pine needles, you can't hear anything.
I've noticed that in my walks in the woods when I was younger. There was I was up in Connecticut on what's known as Case Mountain. It's a smaller mountain conjoined with others, but there was one section that was so dark. We called it the dark forest because you'd enter in literally this wall of pines, and as soon as you walked in 5 feet, it was dead silent. You couldn't hear anything. And it doesn't mean that there was an absence of wildlife there. It was just literally the sound was so muffled from the pine needles that were still on the trees and the ones on the ground and everything being in such close proximity. You couldn't see more than 10, 20 feet in front of you if you were trying to, make something out there in the distance. So that's a really good point too. Very quickly, I'm going to switch to a question that Coral Ann in a TV set. Yeah, I'm ripping that right off of Rich. Sorry, buddy. But it's good. I like it. So Coral Ann asks, does your guest believe Bigfoot has migratory patterns? Great question.
Great question. Yes and no. This is okay. So for all the footers out there, Whitehall, New York is basically Bigfoot capital of the Northeast. Okay. One of my research areas is right outside of Whitehall. I've done research in Whitehall, Airbar Road. I know all about it, been there, seen it, blah, blah, blah. Now, I do believe that the Bigfoots that I study do go from the Adirondack Park through Whitehall to the Vermont border, okay, in the winter. Because it seems that the family that I follow, they disappear in the winter. Okay, I'm a snowshoer. I'm out there snowshoeing, doing all that fun stuff. And there's just nothing. They disappear. Now, guess when they come back? March, April, early spring. Why do they come back? Food. Okay, food starts growing on all the trees. Okay, we start getting into those kind of things. So I do believe some of them, now keyword, some of them, it would be a learned pattern, learned behavior. Okay. Others, I don't think do. There's been many stories that I've heard of foots being around all year round. And once again, in one of my other research areas out on central New York, we find activity all year round. Same thing down in the Catskills, we find activity all year round, which would then tend to tell me that they stay there. So they're not really moving away. So it would really depend on, food, first off. And second off, like what their genetic makeup of the family is, So
and it's also, yep, go ahead.
No, and it's perfect. I mean, let's make it logical, right? For logic, think about us. I grew up in Albany. I lived in Albany my whole life. I lived in Maine for a couple of years. I lived in Hawaii, as I stated. But guess where I came back? Home to Albany. So think about yourself. How far have you gone away from where you live? Now, if we think of that logically, some of us switch states, which would be some of the Bigfoots do migrate to where they need to go. Others, just like us, may not even leave the town They may go to the next suburb over, or to a city around. But once again, they may not go that far. So I think it really depends logically on the group that you're dealing with.
I think that's incredibly sound. And again, it would indicate another biological element that we can observe, again, indicating that this is something. I mean, one of the things is that people talk about Bigfoot and they talk about it with the same discrepancy that they talk about the Loch Ness Monster or, Lake Champlain. I mean, I understand that there's not as much evidence, for some of these other cryptids that are out there. So, speculation is very much due, but there is so much, experience that people have reported and consistent experience, some of them having Bigfoot return to their property or knock on their windows or peek in or something like that, that it keeps coming up. I had an individual named Patrick Vaughn on the show, and he's a survivalist first, but Bigfoot tracker second, and they sort of go hand in hand. And through my discourse with him, I realized that he wasn't sitting there saying, well, if this is real, if this is, what it is. He was saying, listen, whether you believe it or not, when you go into the woods, you ought to prepare yourself like you believe it. Because you know what? If you get into that circumstance and all of a sudden you realize that you are, ill prepared for this, it could be a very dangerous situation. You're now faced with, for all intents and purposes, a wild animal. So, I mean, I think that's so interesting, that people are so convicted about this one particular cryptid. Have you ever observed any connection between Bigfoot habitation and ley lines?
All right, great question once again. And this is what I love this. This is a great show. I knew we were gonna have some good conversation.
Oh, thank you. You're making it, man.
No, man, it's teamwork. Teamwork is dream work. So anyway, I agree with what his statement was, though, because you'll hear me say to my team, there's 1% chance we might not come back out of the woods. It's how simple it is. You can go in so prepared. You can know every skill you need to know. You can know everything. You can have gear upon gear. Modern day hikers love REI in Eastern Mountain Sports. Gear is what we drag into the woods, but that doesn't mean we know how to all use it properly. But you come across something in the woods and you're not prepared for it because, once again, you don't know what's going to happen. Too many people in the Bigfoot community, in my opinion, think that they're cuddly big things. They're like, oh, they will never hurt you. They just want to watch you. Every person, let's make it logical. In human life and existence, there's a lot of nice people, there's a lot of mean people, then there's a lot of messed up people. What is the difference with the animal kingdom? What's the difference with a creature like a Bigfoot? You may come across one that's just angry one day, and next thing you know, you're not coming out of the woods. So there's enough evidence to back up people disappearing in the forest, like missing 411 and things like that. And I'm not tying missing 411 into Bigfoot, even though that I know a lot of people do. But it's logic. It's logic. I mean, it would make sense. So I agree with him. As far as ley lines, Project X, this is what we look into. Let's get the juicy stuff. Love it. So,
that's awesome.
I have noticed last night, actually, I went out, and I did some things. I have noticed that in Bigfoot driven areas, there seems to be the paranormal twist. And now I'm going to use the paranormal twist in this terms, supernatural twist. Because of this, I get orbs and magically pop up in the woods out of nowhere. My EDI meter starts pegging 4, 5, 6 milligauss. I get all these weird EMF readings, frequency changes in the environment, batteries die. Last night, perfect example. I was out doing an experiment. Next thing you know, 5 minutes into the experiment, batteries totally died. In another device, in their digital recorder. Second device I was using was a speaker. Speaker totally died. So within about 15 minutes, 2 devices died, brand new lithium batteries. We can argue that the cold did that. I'd be the first one to tell you, cold makes batteries die quick. So what did I do today? Listen, I'm a data person. I'm a ghost guy, so I'm data. I went into my backyard, brand new batteries, battery tested every battery, all 100%. Took out 6 digital recorders, lined them up on a piece of wood. Now, one of them, I used rechargeable batteries at half power. It read 47%. Cool. line them up, turn them all on. And if you go on to the New York Bigfoot Society Facebook page right now, I posted it. You can watch it and what I did. I'm sorry that it's sideways. I didn't realize if I did it long ways, it'd pop up side. I'm not video person. That's not my thing. So anyway, long story short, they should have it was 7 degrees colder today. Last night, 33 degrees. Today, in the morning when I did it, 26 degrees, 7 degrees colder. What happened? 5 minutes in, they were all still working. The recorder that I used that shut off with brand new lithium batteries on, no problems. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let it go 7 minutes. So I let it go 7 minutes. And guess what happened? Nothing. They all worked fine. So then I shut them all off. Took the batteries out. Got my battery tester back out. Tested all the batteries. And guess what? They were all exactly the same as how I started. So no way. I'm not saying no way. Let me rephrase that. Sorry. It's plausible and very possible that something else drained that battery in a Bigfoot known area. Now, this is the third time when I've used music in the woods, Native American drum music, that once I play it, I sit back, let it soak in the woods. I've changed the environment of the woods by putting out a different frequency, because everything has frequency. And guess what happens? Battery's totally dead in Sasquatch known areas. I'm a data guy. The data doesn't lie. Facts don't lie. I would tell you straight up that if it was BS. So we take that. You take ley lines. It may not be ley lines per se, but in these areas, they're highly energized areas. I'm getting K2 hits. I'm getting EMF hits. I'm getting natural, Gauss meter hits in these areas that I should not be getting anything. And the same as I'm getting Bigfoot activity. I'm getting Bigfoot behavior. I'm getting tree knocks, rocks thrown in, foot tracks found. So I do think, like all animals, that these energy areas draw them in because it's a natural feeling. Think about humans. We're drawn to energy. We're drawn to positive energy. If you walk into a room of 20 pissed off people, you stay in that room for 5 minutes, even though you hit the lottery for $1 million, you take on that personality. You don't even care about that anymore. That is energy, natural human energy. Animals are no different. They're going to be drawn to these areas. So that's the long and the short of it.
It's curious. In my ghost investigating that I did many years ago, the only time I ever experienced a drain of batteries from cameras or, photograph cameras was out in the woods when I was doing investigations at old locations that were there or something that had, been ruined, up to this point. And it's really interesting. I wonder, because I do understand that there are many different types of energies that are flowing through the woods. And obviously there have been older settlements that still permeate this time, if you will, in certain ways. And, that's why people go out into some of these places like Dudleytown or, abandoned places like that. So I wonder if it's because of the Bigfoot energy or if there's something else in the woods that is sort of working in a synergistic fashion with the energy there that drains it. I mean, this may be something that we'll never really have a concrete answer for unless, of course, we have a Bigfoot in our possession. And I say that lightly because I don't think Bigfoot would ever allow us to catch it. But if we ever got to the point, where we were interacting consciously in this way, maybe we'd understand that. But that's so curious. So, being a paranormal guy, we talk about using protection when we go into different locations. And of course, it's spiritual protection. Some people take it more literally. Do you ever have any thoughts or feel that you need to wear protection when you're going out into the woods in that respect, the same way that you might do in an investigation of the paranormal? Do you ever feel that that's a necessary thing to do? And if so, what do you do?
That's a great question. First off, when I do ghost work, I carry black onyx ball with me. Now, this psychic, I was doing an event, and she goes, "Gary, you need this." Now, once again, I'm like, "I need this." She goes, "Just take it." So I call it my third ball, and I put it in my pocket and just keep it. Now, when I do Bigfooting, I never bring anything out in the woods that would be anything spiritual connected. Now, I believe, though, that a Bigfoot or anything is going to know our intent naturally. And what I mean by that is how we react. Life is about cause and effect. It's that simple. If someone's cool to you, they're going to be cool back. If someone's negative towards you or going to do something negative, they're going to be negative back. So what I've always, put into my work is this: put out good and get good in return. If I get rocks thrown at me and things like that, I don't look at that as bad behavior. I look at it as, well, listen, I'm going to see what you're going to do. If I get tree knocks around me and then they get close and they're like, and it gets kind of nerve wracking, I just feel that they can feel your nervous energy, because it's been proven. Animals read stuff. Look at your dog. I was just your home animals. Your home animals know you better than you know yourself. If you're depressed and sad and crying, your animal knows that. It curls up next to you and will lay next to you. These things know on a level that we will never understand. Hence why I say Bigfoot has an 8th, 9th, 10th sense. Okay, it's the same as our dogs at home or cats at home. They know things. And cats, I mean, I love my cats, but man, they're evil. They know things. Like they know things. Like, think about it, So if we actually take a second and examine our animals in our home life, and then go into the woods and think about Bigfoot, a deer, things like that, and think of it logically, then you can take that paranormal sense and be like, all right, this kind of makes more sense. That I feel the reason people say they're supernatural a lot of times, and not everybody, because I work with some awesome people that I'm like, listen, you're teaching me. Like, I don't even know any of this stuff. I've been doing this. I never really looked into it. But people like Mike from Long Island Bigfoot, and I have other people that are teaching me about paranormal Bigfoot, and I think it's fascinating, and I love it, But when I go into the woods and look at things from a flesh and blood type of way, at the end of the day, I'm like, think about your animals at home and bring that into the woods. They can feel you. They sense you. That, in my opinion, is your protection.
Okay.
And that's what I believe, because just like your dog, I always use dogs, that if you're going to be mean to your dog or whatever, or mean to a dog, period, that doesn't know you, what's going to happen? You're going to get a bad response. So if you're going to the woods and you're going to start, doing some things, you're going to get a bad response, in my opinion. So it's that, once again, it's like you said earlier, that energy relationship that you're forming with your environment around you, which I guess you can say is spiritual in a lot of ways, because you're having a spiritual journey when you're in the woods anyway, because we're more relaxed in the woods as far as maybe our bodies, our senses are heightened because we're out of our environment. So like all of our senses start working in ways that you never thought you really could work. Or you're going to be petrified because the woods are unknown. So it's going to turn into a negative situation, which I believe a lot of people that have negative encounters, is it a negative encounter, or is it just that you're so scared you turn that in your head because you can't process it?
Yeah, both both outcomes are possible with that. And I was I was really hoping for a non-traditional answer from you, and you came through in spades here, because that's really interesting. That a lot of people talk about power objects, or they talk about some sort of prayer or meditation before using white light. These are all individual practices that are focused on the individual, but what you're suggesting is something, again, much more synergistic and in balance, and respecting what's there and working with what's there in a natural way. I think that's absolutely fascinating, the answer you just gave there.
I have a couple. Yep. Oh, no, I was thinking about this, and I'm building off this a little bit. Let's go to ufology quick. CE5. What is CE5? You meditate to then bring a response, right? Dr. David Greer. If we do these type of things, and these are the things that people say they're all connected. Everything's connected. The universe, everything, us, we're all connected. If we look at things in a connective sense, not an individual sense. Now, there's nothing wrong with protecting yourself and whatever you need to do. My people on my team do different stuff, and that's their thing. Power of belief is the most important thing we have as a human. No, nothing can change that belief but you. Think about that. So
That's true.
that's why individuality is so important. But if we work outside the box, think about it from a connective situation. We're connected to the universe. Then we can put that energy out into the environment instead of carrying an object that, what do you do if you lose that object? What happens if I drop it in the woods? What happens if I leave it at home? I travel an hour and a half, 2 hours to where I go. I left that object at home. I left so much power and energy in that object that now I'm screwed indirectly in the woods. But guess what? You're not screwed. It's that your mind is not in the right frame. You're not in the right frame of mind. Think of it from connectivity. And like someone said, Native Americans said they're spirits of the forest. You know, Native Americans said that they're tribe of own people. The Iroquois, Algonquins, they're their tribe of own people. Depending on how you want to take that, that's individual. But when you communicate with people, we communicate like we are. We're talking. Go into the woods, communicate in a different way, but you still can protect yourself in that sense. If something's gonna happen in the woods, can't stop it. You can't. You're dealing with creatures and animals and bears and possible mountain lions. They don't care. It's survival. We're not in there to survive. So it's a different set of scenarios.
That's fantastic, dude. I mean, you're just so comprehensive. You know, I'm blowing you up here a bit, but you deserve every bit of it. You know, you're so comprehensive in these answers. It's just making this interview such an enjoyable time for me, dude. Thank you so much. I have another question I'm going to ask you, and then we'll flip over to the little treat I have for everybody that I didn't announce. But stick around, guys. In a few moments, Gary and I are going to listen to a panel that Third Phase of Moon, myself, Rich from GUFON, and Dr. J Radio Live did over the recent Mothman sightings. And then Gary's going to give us his opinion on that, which I cannot wait to hear, because I know you guys are listening to him talk about Bigfoot, but he's told me, and he's given me some more information that says that he knows a lot more about cryptids in general than, you know, perhaps what he's known for. And this is why I would love to have you back on the show, Gary, to continue what we're doing here. Oh, dude, I appreciate it so much. I don't usually ask people, you know, outright on the show because it puts pressure, but I'm having such a great time with you. I felt that would be okay this time round. So let's put, this one doesn't necessarily have to do with Bigfoot. Okay. This has to do with the spiritual collective as a whole. And it's something that people have been talking about lately and really contemplating, although the concept's been around for at least a good 30 years. People say the veils are thinning in regards to the etheric world and spiritual matters. How do you interpret this? And do you think we are collectively going through an energetic shift of sorts?
Spiritual matters and energetic shift. Yeah, I do in a lot of ways. And once again, I think it's all individual. I think it's how we receive energy and how we put out energy. And I really believe it's that simple. The problem is that just like Bigfoot and just like other things, they're masters of their environment. Okay. We're masters of this environment. But as we get clouded by judgment, right? Like as we grow up, we're taught all these different things, and then it clouds like that sense. So we say we have 10 senses, right? Well, by the time we're in our 20s, we're down to what, like 4 senses now, right? Because we've been clouded by society. I do believe, though, with all these subject matters, that we are now more open to the possibilities because we are looking at things from a very logistic point of view, a different point of view, and there's more people that don't think of these things as taboo. But in my opinion, it's because of religion. That's why. You got to remember, a lot of people were religious, and people that even aren't religious, if your family was religious, you don't want to say that you're wrong, that what you taught, your parents taught you wrong, that the way I was brought up was wrong. That's very personal. Okay. But with the amount of people that are now not going to church all the time and all that stuff, we're free thinkers. That's the great thing about modern day, is that we can think free, but it gets us into a lot of trouble too, because we still need organization. You know what I mean? We still need organization. We're human beings, and we still need that. But with that being said, I do believe that this is a shift. that it's a spiritual shift that people are looking into, that are now starting to feel things are changing. Okay. And I think it depends individually if people are open-minded. And if you're open-minded enough, I believe that shift will come and it will be in a positive way. But that doesn't mean that just because you're having a positive shift happen, we won't recycle. Humans are all about recycling. So the main thing with that would be is understand the shift in feelings that you're having and just go with it. And if you do recycle, guess what? It's totally okay. It's like Bigfoot and migrating. Some people leave the area and never come back. People like me, I've left the area and came back home. So it's okay. Enjoy the spiritual shift.
That's awesome. Seriously, man. I mean, what a cool answer. And, I do agree with you on that. At the very least, if you're feeling these things and they're, abnormal to you and in respect to what just feel them out. See how they feel. If they work for you, you take them in. If not, you can put them off to the side. If they were for you, or if they were for you, they will come back at another point when you're ready. I think that there's a lot to be talked and discussed about with the paradigm shift and the pole shifting and how that affects to consciousness in, waking life and also in other states of consciousness as well. But all right, so for the moment here, I'm going to pop on this radio show here, this panel, and we'll take a listen and I'll come back to you first. Let's get this up and running. I hope you guys are enjoying the show. I see a lot of you in here tonight. Thank you so much for joining. We are actually having a fantastic time here tonight. I'll be honest with you. This is
chill.
Just awesome, man.
It's chill. That's what it's about. You know what I mean? And everybody out there, Joe, you got good people. So that's all that matters. Good people.
Yes. And you know what? It's not something we just say, guys. You guys are awesome. And that's absolutely true. It's not just because you're here. It's because of who you are. And a lot of you, well, some of you, I know, or I've had interactions with personally. And I think Gary has as well. And you guys are just the best, dude. You guys are just the best.
Rock on, everyone. Footer Nation, love it.
Here we go.
With my interaction with the 14 Research Society, including Lon Strickler, Manny Navarrete, and Tobias Whalen specifically, they have brought to my attention over this past year specifically that there has been sightings of a Chicago Mothman in and around O'Hare International Airport, as well as the local area too. The Mothman that people are seeing is a little bit different than the Point Pleasant, West Virginia Mothman that we all know and love, who was perhaps a harbinger of doom. He lived possibly over by the TNT area, and there's many speculations about what he was and why he disappeared after the collapse of the bridge, that he was supposedly a part of that disaster. We're not seeing any specific examples of harbingers of doom when it comes to this current Mothman, but he does share some physical attributes with the original, including glowing red eyes and big flapping like wings. These are the two consistencies that people have really put to this. Now, in regards to O'Hare National Airport, which is a great topic of conversation, a lot of strange things have been reported there, not just by people visiting, but employees and staff members alike. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to them about was how were people dealing with these sightings, because they come in multitudes, indicating military presence, perhaps some sort of base underground underneath the airport. People have seen extraterrestrials popping out of the corners. Of course, Mothman, UFOs, and management itself has actually cracked down on employees from talking to groups such as 14 Research Society. So what is happening there? Why keep all that under wraps if we know that something's going on? And is there any connection to perhaps the oddities that occur at the Denver airport? What do you guys think?
Well, the Mothman, from what I gather, it's been around since I remember the 1970s. When I was a little kid, I'd read these comic books about the Mothman sightings, and it really intrigued me. But then it seemed like in the 1990s or started in 2000s, we really haven't seen Mothman until now recent times, of this mysterious creature with red eyes making its appearances around Chicago and the Chicago area. And then in relation to all these UFO sightings around the O'Hare airport. I'm not exactly sure if this creature, whatever it is, has been in hiding all this time, and now finally it's kind of like coming back, or maybe it's an interdimensional creature. I'm not exactly sure, but it's very interesting that the Mothman is kind of making the headlines again. And in my opinion, there's a reason for it. There's just a lot more sightings going on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that there are some consistencies, as I mentioned, but to be honest with you, in digging into this subject, I think it's a misnomer for what we're currently seeing. I do believe that it shares interdimensional aspects with the original Mothman, but I believe it was the media that reported this current sighting under that moniker. So I don't know if there's an actual relationship between the two, and honestly, only time will tell.
Where was this at?
In Chicago, in and around Chicago, but specifically at O'Hare International Airport.
Right. So you remember in 2005 or 6, the sighting that happened over the, I think, runway 18, the disc-shaped object. So it's kind of interesting. Now we're hearing about Mothman. We've also had sightings of the jetpack guy over LA. That could be the Mothman. You know, maybe, who knows, you know, a version of him. Or this is bizarre. I mean, this is really, really bizarre what's happening. Maybe there's some sort of portal over O'Hare, something, you know, that they could go through and appear at certain times. And that's why maybe we're seeing it, or they're seeing it.
Rich, as soon as you said Chicago O'Hare, same thing to me. I was thinking about that craft that literally punched a hole through the clouds, which is not supposed to be feasibly possible, but yet it did. So that's why I am not surprised, Michael, that it is here.
It's you know, it's curious. It's an ongoing investigation, but there are so many reports coming from, you know, the employees at O'Hare. It's unfathomable. You know, you wouldn't. Let's see. I think it was.
How tall was this being?
Well, people are saying that it could be between 8 and 10 feet tall, but you know, again, it's hard because when people get into a state of shock, fear, or, you know, surprised easily, you know, some of our normal ways of measuring through interpretation are definitely muted. So, yeah, you know, it's true. To say that it's larger than your average man, I would say would be accurate.
Still, I'd probably run the other way if I saw Mothman, not stop taking pictures. But, you know, with all the technology we have now, like, for instance, Skinwalker Ranch 20 years ago, they couldn't capture anything. But the new technology that Brendan Fugel has on Skinwalker Ranch, they're capturing everything. So I would hope that there's a lot of cameras and other equipment to maybe capture Mothman, because if there's this many witnesses, obviously they're not all fucking kooky.
Mothman also was seen, people think that there's some catastrophe ahead. And then with 2020, the way it's been going.
Like the bridge. Like the bridge.
Exactly.
Point Pleasant Bridge. Is that what it was in Virginia?
Yeah.
Yeah. Knock on wood. That's all I could say.
Thank you very much, Blake and Brent, for joining me, and Rich from GUFON. Third Phase of Moon, of course, is where Blake and Brent are from, and Dr. J from Dr. J Radio Live. Thank you very much for sitting in and talking about this subject that is current, ongoing in terms of investigation, and we'll see what happens next. Anything that comes up, I will be sure to get to every single one of you for further review.
Well, thank you for hanging out and listening to this. Gary, what are your thoughts on the current Mothman that everybody's been seeing?
Well, I mean, let's think of this from Mothman's a totally different subject matter. So, yeah, it's totally different. I like to look at Mothman like this. Let's go to the ancient alien theory. Okay, so I'm all my, you know, my alien people and UFO people. What's up? Let's do this. So if we look at Mothman from the ancient alien theory, going way back, how many times have we seen winged angel type things coming, you know, being put in hieroglyphics and things like that in Egypt, in written text? They have winged beings being seen by ancient people. Okay, now if we take that into consideration of what a Mothman is, that would almost make more logical sense that we could be seeing in modern day the same being that these ancient cultures saw way back in the day. So let's make it even easier. I like to dumb things down so much. Chicago. Is it that Chicago is a hub for where Mothman is right now? Maybe.
Yes.
Or is it because they said in the interview, well, there's no destruction or anything going bad, because we always think of Mothman, the original story. But let's stop and think logically. What are we going through right now? One of the worst pandemics as far as modern time. I wasn't around for the Spanish flu. Sorry. I can only go by what I know. Okay. And I don't know. It is what it is. But we're going through these type of things. Okay. We're going through destruction of government. I mean, let's look at that. Look what happened today. And I hate politics, so I'm not going to talk about it. But just look at these type of things that are happening now in society. Okay. Could that Mothman or that ancient alien, if we're going to talk portals, if there's a portal over the airport, that would support the theory of it being maybe an ancient alien type being. That maybe there is a portal and that these things can come through the portals. Maybe there's more than one Mothman. Maybe Mothman lost weight and he's been doing keto. I don't know with that. Okay? I don't know. But in the same sense, I look at Mothman from the ancient alien theory only because we have these same beings written all over the world, just at a different time. So I almost, where they make Mothman a cryptid because it looks like a bug and has fly and it looks, all looks like a moth and red eyes. Okay. They say Bigfoot has red eyes too. A lot of people. But is this more of an alien type being? I've always tended to think that it's more alien than cryptid, only because there's so much ancient alien theory evidence to back up that theory. Because it's drawn, it's written. I mean, it's all over the place. So yeah, and if it was a portal, like they said, okay. I mean, it'd be plausible to me because you're talking about weird stuff. So it does make logical sense. And now you're seeing one now, and you brought this up, which was great. I'm going to go full circle, yin and yang on you. You were just talking about the spiritual shift. So are we seeing Mothman now because of all this craziness that's going on? And I'm reading your chat. People are more open-minded to things. We are thinking as a free people. We're changing our minds of thinking of what we thought we knew. But now a lot of people want to think for themselves. Is that why we saw a Mothman chilling in Chicago on the deep dish pizza? Because here we go. It would make logical sense that if we're looking at, we take Mothman and we look at it as a symbol. There's symbolism to the Mothman. There's no symbolism to Ghost. There's no symbolism to Bigfoot or Nessie. But with Mothman, once again, if destruction, negativity, something bad's going to happen. We gave it power. We gave the Mothman a power that probably didn't even have a power until humans gave it power. So, because we gave it an idea. So here we are seeing Mothman giving it the same idea, but that idea may not even be what it really is because humans created that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's where I'm at with that. So maybe it's ancient alien theory because that's where I kind of go with the Mothman. Because
it makes you go ahead.
No, I mean, that's kind of where I am with. I mean, I don't know really where to build off of that other than, to me, it's always been that theory because we talk about proof. Proof is in the pudding. Seeing is believing. All these winged creatures they've been chiseled in the walls.
Yep.
Right?
They've been there for much longer than we recall.
Correct. So if we just go by that alone, take human out of it, more than likely, we could now be seeing these kind of things. And think about this too. Not everybody can see ghosts. Not everybody can see certain things. It takes a certain person in a certain mindset. These people seeing these creatures or aliens or whatever you want to say, maybe they're the only ones seeing it because they're in that mindset to take that information in. Frequency.
Boom.
Everything is
Again.
connected. Boom. It's all, like I say, the yin and the yang. Everything's connected. So that's just my take on it.
You know, that's fascinating. And I've said it a few times tonight, but really it's what you're saying is just a bit different than what we've normally heard. And it does have that spiritual edge to it because you understand a lot in the field, and it's very obvious talking to you. One thing that jogged my mind when you were speaking there is, you know, it's been said that it only takes a handful of people to reach what we would call Christ consciousness level or enlightenment, and to be walking around physically on the earth. And, you know, just that handful of people, I'm talking like, you know, 3 to 10 people. Okay. It's probably even less than 10, really.
Mm-hmm.
It will actually pull the energy up of the entire planet and everything on it. You know, and we're doing this in our own smaller ways, so to speak, you know, because we're at our own levels of consciousness now. And, you know, if somebody was able to just pop into that mentality and that state of being and sustain it, they could just being around here, you know, I mean, they're shifting things. So if that's the case, and we're sitting around and we're talking about these things, and while we're talking about them, our consciousness is expanding to some respect, because again, the open mind aspect and the topics at large really challenge you. Jesus, sorry. Could it be that in doing all of this, we are collectively raising our consciousness so that, you know, sightings like that, where, you know, the vibration might have been higher than what we would normally perceive in our field of perception, or lower, to say that, and either way, we were missing it, even though it was there, we were just missing it. And now, with the collective consciousness and the paradigm shift that we may or may not be going through, perhaps it's more available to people, that experience, and to be able to see the thinning of the veil that we're talking about again here, you know, just as a possibility. Just, that's awesome.
No,
That's
it makes
awesome.
perfect sense, and I agree with you. And let's go one step further. Is it consciousness or is it evolution?
Yeah, I
Because
think
once
they play
again,
together.
They go together because, once again, we don't understand our brains whatsoever. So we know such a small deal of it. So with the consciousness in the modern day era, are we just now tapping into a portion of our brain that is just still not known to science, that we are able to make these things happen and see certain things in that we would never be able to see because we were clouded by judgment? Or was that part of the consciousness, our soul, whatever you want to call it, wasn't open for that interpretation?
Yeah, good point, dude. I mean, you can't say it any more plainly and clearly, really. I mean, it's a complex subject, but, you know, you have the gift of gab, that's obvious. Yeah, but it's about simplicity. It really is. So, dude, thank you so much.
You know, you said that earlier, though, because you said, like, we were talking and you said, well, when, you know, we want to interpret information, and remember how I said it, we kind of recycle? Well, like you said, you said it perfectly. We get the information, we process it, whatever happens in our life, we may not use it now, we'll use it later, right? This is a perfect example of it. So there's full circle once again. So a lot of full circles.
Well, I mean, that's what they say the universe is made up of, and at the core is part of the sacred geometry after the dot, which, you know, is just a pinpoint of consciousness. But we can get into that another point. All right, so I'm going to wrap up for now. I don't want to, but I'm going to, and I'll just take you off for a moment. I'll say my proper goodbyes off camera if you can stick around for a minute.
Gotcha.
Awesome. Very quickly, can you just let everybody know, again, I know Long Island Bigfoot's been very good about posting your Facebook page in the chat throughout the show tonight. Can you just verbally give us a place that we can find you and check out your work?
Yeah, man. So everybody, thank you for having me on. Thank you for listening to me talk too much. But yeah, you can find me at, you know, New York Bigfoot Society on Facebook. All right. We're very active on there. Also, we do have a YouTube page that's up and going. And we're going to be adding a lot of stuff to 2021 with Project X. Okay. But New York Bigfoot Society on YouTube. And we have the New York Bigfoot Society radio show. It's a bi-weekly show with my co-host Kenny Irish, who's an author, Bigfoot, you know, phenomena with me. So he's an amazing guy. I love him to death. He's a brother from another mother. And now we started the Bigfoot Roundtable. So NYBS Project X, I have all the brains in there, and we kind of talk Bigfoot in different subjects. Last week we talked about migration, so here we go, and that came up today. So that's where you can find me.
Well, you can bet that you guys will find me there too. I'll be watching and checking out what Gary's doing as he's developing, because I'm really excited for this Project X. And, if I can just say, I don't know you very well, Gary, but, in talking with you, it feels like Project X is sort of a bigger reflection of possibly what you're starting to contemplate now in your research. You said before, you were ghosts first, you got bored with that, then you went into cryptids. Well, maybe you're at a point or some sort of impasse that, you want to just kind of look at different angles in the field, and perhaps the spiritual side of cryptids and so forth might be one of them. But instead of just, doing the research yourself and just, undertaking it all together, you've gone one step further and incorporated people and energies that will really meld together well as a whole. Man, I can see it already. And I know you just started this project, but I am super excited. So guys, go and check out Gary's work there on the Facebook page. It is in the description. You guys can click it there. It's been in the chat all night, and I'd be happy to give it to you if you wanted to email me and missed it somehow. Dark Hour Paranormal Live at gmail.com. I'll send you everything in the event. Again, in the afterward, if somebody's not watching this live and they want to get in touch with me about that, we'll do that as well.
Yeah.
So,
and the main
all right,
thing
excellent.
I want to, let me end with this last thing and tell you.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, first off, just be with cool people, laid back like we were tonight. And the main thing is get along in the field. That's all we're all here for the same purpose. And if I can take 9 people from different backgrounds, different lifestyles, and bring them together for the common cause in a respectful manner, there's no reason in any single paranormal subject anybody should be arguing, because it's paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not real life.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? It's okay. I mean, that's where it is. So be happy, come from a place of good-hearted and love, and guess what? You'll get great return. And it's that simple.
God, that's probably the best advice that I have heard all night. And it's something that we say in different words and talk about in passing, but, this word love, is very expansive in its definition and its implications. And you know what? At the core, think about, we talked about pets, we talked about animals. Think about the love that you show your animal and the response that you get back. Guess what? We have the same ability, being the organic beings that we are, and, the spiritual and emotional beings that we are. So, exercise that, because you know what? Not every form of life is capable of holding that sort of vibration. And again, that's another show in and of itself. But I love Gary's message. He's an awesome guy. If you guys can't feel his energy through the screen, go back and watch the show again. Honestly, sometimes you just meet people with huge energy, and Gary is definitely one of those. So thank you again for being on the show. I appreciate you so much, man. I'm going to pull you off for just a second, and I'll join you in just a moment.
All right. Deuces, everyone. Keep it squatchy.
Cheers. Oh, my God. No, seriously. I know it sounds like I'm just, blowing steam here, but believe me, if you guys have been with me for as long as most of you have, that when I get behind something, there's a good reason. And I've felt good about Gary ever since I first had the opportunity to talk to him. And I'll be honest with you, one of the cool things about meeting Gary on Long Island Bigfoot's show was that I had no idea who he was. It could have been something as simple as, hey, how you doing? Who are you? And it just, as soon as Gary started talking, I was like, wait a minute. This is somebody I need to be listening to. This is somebody who has something to say. And again, this was in the initial paragraph or two that he started on in terms of the conversation that led ahead that already impressed me. And just like tonight, I want to go. I know we're on time limit. I don't want to go. And that's what it was like on Long Island Bigfoot show, which I think I spent a good 45 minutes, maybe an hour at most. And then I had to depart. But again, we're going to have Gary back on the show, and we're going to get into some of these other side peripheral topics, I'll say, that we've kind of touched upon tonight. I think he would be interested in doing that as well. But of course, I will pass that by him. And I hope to see you guys soon. So first of all, I want to thank ThirdPhaseOfMoon for that fantastic trailer I played in the beginning of the show. Please check out their new documentary. It's coming out on February 16th. You can order it on Venmo as a pre-order for $9.99. And I believe it's going to be across many different platforms as it's released. And that's called Countdown to Disclosure. Check it out, guys. It's going to be incredible. And I very much 100% back that documentary and all the work that was put in. That being said, if you guys are interested in donating to me, you may do so in the link. There's a link. You may do it in the description. There's a link down there to PayPal, and you can donate if you're interested. That being said, thank you, Rich from GUFON. Thank you, Dr. J Radio Live. And again, thank you, Third Phase of Moon. You guys can catch me here at Dark Hour Paranormal, or you can see me over at Third Phase with Rich Giordano from GUFON as we do these follow-up analysis videos and have a great time doing it. So once again, folks, I hope you had a fantastic evening tonight. I'm so happy to see all of you here. Thank you for joining. And please like and subscribe, not only to Dark Hour Paranormal, but go ahead and check out Long Island Bigfoot and see what he's been doing. He's fascinating. He posts stuff every day. Go and check out Gary's work. As we've said, at this point, that's a no-brainer. You guys, I know most of you will be over there to at least check out what he's been up to. And, that being said, Third Phase and Third Phase of Moon, subscribe and like to those guys too, because, man, we're making moves, man. We're making moves, and it feels good. And I'm glad to have every single one of you along for the ride, and I will stop being long-winded now and just end the show. Thanks, guys, once again. I appreciate each and every one of you. And we will see you next time on Dark Hour Paranormal. In the meantime, stay magical, stay awake, and stay inquisitive. Cheerio.